Now, I know, as you do, that future progress depends on the next generation, just as today's progress depends on us. Civil rights, as one friend of mine puts it, is a relay race for justice. Our forward movement as a society depends on the clarity and the perspective with which the next generation views the challenge and the creativity with which they undertake to address it. And that, in turn, depends on whether they understand and embrace American ideals of equality, opportunity, and fair play, and are inspired to act on them. I found myself thinking a lot about the state of American ideals and idealists beginning last spring. It was my first spring kind of paying attention to life in Washington. And I noticed that in the springtime, the city is full of tourists, especially school children on class trips. The days are warm and long, the azaleas and the dogwoods are in their glory, and school children from across the country come to see their nation's capital. And when you see these kids standing in a place like the Capitol Rotunda, dressed in the style they call grunge, speaking their own special slang, asking such profound questions as where the nearest McDonald's is, one might incline to wonder about whether the next generation will produce many idealists, many great statesmen and stateswomen, many compassionate leaders. But I am absolutely convinced they are there. They wear the dress and walk the walk and talk the talk of their time, just as each of us has in ours. But some harbor a latent idealism beneath their contemporary version of cool, just like some of us. Some find themselves a little embarrassed by the simple majesty of the Declaration of Independence when they visit the National Archives, or a little uneasy, just a little uneasy, when they read the engravings on the walls of the Lincoln Memorial. Some linger a moment or two longer than the rest in the Capitol Rotunda, taking in the full impact of that scene. And in that extra moment of reflection, in that embarrassment and unease, lies a seed of idealism waiting to grow. If we don't nurture that idealism and encourage its growth, if we don't summon forth the better angels of their nature, as others have in our time, then the purveyors of mendacious rhetoric and cynical politics will win the day, and at unspeakable cost. In my time and in others, there were national purposes like civil rights and national heroes like Martin Luther King Jr. and Lyndon Johnson, who called upon our founders' idealism and met this nation with a challenge of conscience. And in fits and starts of courage and pain, we responded to that call and reached across our differences, if only for an instant, to seize our common humanity. Well, today, as in all other times, the human spirit is the same. Young people still harbor idealism, a little shyly perhaps, and with veiled reticence. Even in the bleakest places, children still look for a reason to hope. And what shall we offer them? Who will call forth their idealism? Who will set his or her own discouragement and weariness aside long enough to light a fire of purpose under somebody else? Will history say of the legacy and the challenge we pass on to them that ours was the generation and the time that gave up on and lost interest in finally building a single unified nation? The challenge today is not solely one of race or of gender or of ethnicity or of religion. It's not solely one of economics or crime or education. All those are important. The challenge today is a challenge of citizenship. It's the need to reclaim American ideals and refresh our commitment to honor them. And that is not the work of public leaders alone. It is the work, if not also the duty, of each of us. Each of us influences someone else, often without realizing it, and it is within our power to make a difference if we're willing to pay attention to someone else, to take on their needs and their hopes. To illustrate my point, I want to share a story I often tell that Marian Wright Edelman tells about one school teacher named Gene Thompson and one fifth-grade boy named Teddy Stollard. It goes this way. On the first day of school, Jean Thompson told her students, "Boys and girls, I love you all the same, but now teachers do lie." Little Teddy Stollard was a boy Jean Thompson did not like. He slouched in his chair, didn't pay attention, his mouth hung open in a stupor, his eyes were always unfocused, his clothes were mussed, his hair unkempt, and he smelled. He was an unattractive boy, and Jean Thompson did not like him. Now, teachers have records, and Jean Thompson had Teddy's. First grade, Teddy's a good boy. He shows promise in his work and attitude, but he has a poor home situation. Second grade, Teddy is a good boy. He does what he is told, but he is too serious. His mother is terminally ill. Third grade, Teddy is falling behind in his work. He needs help. His mother died this year. His father shows no interest. Fourth grade, Teddy is in deep waters. He is in need of psychiatric help. He is totally withdrawn. Christmas came to the fifth grade, and the boys and girls brought their presents and piled them on her desk. They were all in brightly colored paper, except for Teddy's. His was wrapped in brown paper and held together with Scotch tape, and on it, scribbled in crayon, were the words, "For Miss Thompson, from Teddy." She tore open the brown paper, and out fell a rhinestone bracelet with most of the stones missing, and a bottle of cheap perfume that was almost empty. When the other boys and girls began to giggle, she had enough sense to put some of the perfume on her wrist, put on the bracelet, hold her wrist up to the other children and say, "Doesn't it smell lovely? Isn't the bracelet pretty?" And taking their cue from the teacher, they all agreed. At the end of the day, when all the children had left, Teddy lingered, came over to her desk and said, "Miss Thompson, all day long you smell just like my mother. And her bracelet, that's her bracelet. It looks real nice on you, too. I'm really glad you like my presents." And when he left, she got down on her knees and buried her head in her chair, and she begged God to forgive her. The next day, when the children came, she was a different teacher. She was a teacher with a heart, and she cared for all the children, but especially those who needed help, especially Teddy. She tutored him and put herself out for him. By the end of the year, Teddy had caught up with a lot of the other children and was even ahead of some. Several years later, Jean Thompson got this note. "Dear Miss Thompson, I'm graduating and I'm second in my high school class. I wanted you to be the first to know. Love, Teddy." 4 years later, she got another note. "Dear Miss Thompson, I wanted you to be the first to know. The university has not been easy, but I liked it. Love, Teddy Stollard." 4 years after that, she got this note. "Dear Miss Thompson, as of today, I am Theodore J. Stollard, M.D. How about that? I wanted you to be the first to know. I'm going to be married in July. I want you to come and sit where my mother would have sat, because you're the only family I have. Dad died last year." And you know, she went and she sat where his mother would have sat because she deserved to be there. She had become a decent and loving human being. Now, while we debate the abstract merits of colorblindness and the theories on either side of affirmative action as a means, there are millions of Teddy Stollards all over this country, millions, looking for a way up and a way in. Children who are left out and left back, who will never become doctors or lawyers or teachers or police officers or little else, because there was no Jean Thompson, no other teacher, no friend, maybe no one like you, who by action or example quietly inspired them, showed them how to look up rather than down, helped them to see their stake in their own and their neighbor's dreams, and gave someone else a reason to hope.